Interestingly, this heightened empathy can make human relationships harder, not easier. Why? Because when you constantly feel others' moods, tension, or disappointment, relationships can become emotionally draining. Animals communicate more directly and honestly. There is no manipulation, no passive aggression, no hidden agenda. For highly empathic people, animals feel emotionally clean. Now let's talk about trust. Many individuals who prefer animals over humans have experienced betrayal, rejection, bullying, or emotional trauma. Trust, once broken repeatedly, reshapes the brain's threat detection system. The amygdala, the brain's alarm center, becomes more reactive in social situations. Humans start to feel unpredictable and potentially dangerous. Animals, however, operate within simpler relational rules. If you treat an animal with care, it responds with consistency. If you provide safety, it returns loyalty. That cause-and-effect clarity feels stabilizing to someone whose human experiences have been chaotic. There is also a personality component. Studies on personality traits show that people who feel closer to animals often score higher in openness to experience and introversion. Introverts, in particular, gain energy from solitude and depth rather than from frequent social interaction. Animals offer companionship without draining social energy. You can sit in silence together, you can coexist without conversation, you can share presence without explanation. For an introvert, that is not loneliness, that is comfort. But here's something important. This preference is not always about avoidance. Sometimes it reflects moral sensitivity. Some individuals feel disillusioned by human behavior, cruelty, hypocrisy, dishonesty. Animals, in contrast, appear authentic. They don't pretend. They don't hide motives. Their emotions are direct. For people with strong moral values, this authenticity feels deeply attractive. Animals represent innocence in a world that often feels corrupted. However, we also need to talk about the shadow side. In some cases, preferring animals exclusively and completely withdrawing from human relationships can become a protective strategy that turns into isolation. If someone has been hurt repeatedly, they may unconsciously decide animals are safe, humans are not. While this belief protects them from further pain, it can also limit opportunities for healing human connection. The nervous system stays in avoidance mode. Growth requires risk, and risk requires vulnerability. So, the key psychological question becomes, is the connection to animals enriching your life or replacing human connection entirely? Healthy attachment to animals can coexist with healthy human relationships. It doesn't have to be one or the other. Have you ever met someone who says, "I trust animals more than people," or maybe that someone is you? Maybe you feel more at peace sitting next to a dog than at a crowded dinner table. Maybe a cat's quiet presence feels safer than a room full of conversations. Maybe you've noticed that when life becomes overwhelming, it's not people you run to, it's an animal. Why does that happen? Today, we're diving deep into the psychology of people who feel closer to animals than to humans. This isn't about liking pets, this is about emotional wiring, attachment styles, personality traits, past wounds, empathy, and the hidden strengths that often come with this connection. And by the end of this video, you might understand yourself or someone you love in a completely new way. First, let's clarify something important. Feeling closer to animals than humans is not abnormal. In fact, psychologically speaking, it often reflects specific emotional patterns and strengths. One of the biggest factors behind this tendency is attachment style. In attachment theory, developed by John Bowlby, early relationships with caregivers shape how we relate to others throughout life. If someone grew up with inconsistent, emotionally distant, unpredictable, or critical caregivers, they may develop insecure attachment patterns such as anxious or avoidant attachment. Animals offer something many insecurely attached individuals deeply crave: safe, consistent presence. A dog doesn't judge your career. A cat doesn't criticize your personality. A horse doesn't withdraw love because you said the wrong thing. Animals are emotionally predictable. And for someone whose nervous system learned early in life that human relationships are unstable or risky, predictability feels like safety. Another psychological factor is social exhaustion. Some people are naturally more sensitive to social stimuli. Psychologist Elaine Aron introduced the concept of the highly sensitive person HSP. Highly sensitive individuals process emotional and environmental information deeply. Crowded rooms, intense conversations, subtle emotional cues, all of it can be overstimulating. Animals, in contrast, offer connection without social performance. You don't have to impress a dog. You don't have to manage impressions. You don't have to decode complicated social signals. For sensitive individuals, animals feel like emotional quiet, a space where their nervous system can finally relax. There's also the empathy factor. Research consistently shows that people who feel deeply connected to animals often score high in trait empathy. They are more attuned to nonverbal cues, body language, tone shifts, subtle behavioral changes. They can sense distress without words. There's also something fascinating happening neurologically. When we interact with animals, the brain releases oxytocin, often called the bonding hormone. This is the same hormone involved in parent-child bonding and romantic attachment. Physical touch, eye contact with a dog, even petting a cat can increase oxytocin and reduce cortisol, the stress hormone. For someone who struggles with human intimacy, animals provide a biologically soothing bridge. They regulate the nervous system, they lower anxiety, they create a sense of belonging without social pressure. In therapeutic settings, animal-assisted therapy is often used to help people with PTSD, autism, depression, and anxiety. Animals help rebuild trust in connection itself. It's also worth noting that feeling close to animals often reflects a strong capacity for caregiving. Many of these individuals are deeply nurturing. They find meaning in protecting, feeding, comforting, and understanding another living being. Caring for an animal gives them purpose and emotional fulfillment. And sometimes, especially if they grew up having to care for others emotionally, animals feel like a form of love that is reciprocated without complexity. Let's challenge a stereotype. Some people assume that those who prefer animals over humans are socially awkward or unable to relate to people. That's not necessarily true. In many cases, these individuals understand people very well, sometimes too well. Their preference isn't ignorance of human behavior. It's fatigue from it. They may have strong observational intelligence. They may notice hypocrisy quickly. They may detect insincerity instantly. Animals, by comparison, feel refreshingly transparent. So, what does all of this mean? If you feel closer to animals than to humans, it might mean you value emotional safety. You are sensitive to social overstimulation. You have high empathy. You may carry relational wounds. You crave authenticity. You regulate stress through quiet connection. You find meaning in caregiving, and none of that makes you strange. But here's the important part. Humans are imperfect, not inherently unsafe. The goal isn't to replace animals with people. It's to understand why animals feel safer and then slowly expand your capacity to experience that same safety with at least a few carefully chosen humans. Because connection, at its healthiest, is not species exclusive. If this video resonated with you, ask yourself one gentle question. When I choose animals over people, is it coming from love or from fear? Awareness is the beginning of emotional freedom. And sometimes, understanding your bond with animals is actually the first step toward healing your bond with humanity. Stay curious about yourself.